despite the incredible duress that every character in that film is, there is this message that we're all going to go down together. There is the sense that we're going to bet on this philosophical idea that we're going to, band together. And that has sort of stuck with me in so many different ways, through the programming that we do, through running a space where people are supposed to come in, day out. And it made me want to talk to you in your respective fields about loneliness. So, I'm going to start on that sort of heavy note, and then talk about the more pragmatic aspects of the work that we do. I'm going to let everybody get settled in.
Let's wait a couple of minutes. Yeah.
You go every year to Cannes?
Yeah.
I have only gone once. I love it. It's.
I've been, I think, now 9 times.
Wow.
I think it will be my 10th. I have to actually do a count and see. But this one, it won the jury prize.
Almost 3 years ago.
Yes.
A metaphor for so many different things that we're
From Rome, Italy.
thinking
and
about
Rome
as a human race. It's very similar
basically
in a
number
way
two.
to the spirit of one
The
battle
Rome of
after
Rouse.
another,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the films that are kind of
What about
contemplating
yourself?
what our meaning is. Yeah,
From
it's really, really good.
And if you go next year, let's make it my second and your 10th.
Yes, absolutely. But I am going. So maybe Rawan is also going. We'll talk about it tonight. All right. Hi. Welcome, everyone. You just, are walking into the high note of us beginning to talk about loneliness. And, we have folks up on here on this panel who run incredible institutions, festivals that are primarily out there to bring people together in shared experience, thought, joy, curiosity. And, I started off thinking about the concept of loneliness, reflecting on a film called Sirat by Olivier Lux. It's a philosophical film. It's going to come out soon. Maybe if you live in Europe, it's already out on screens. And the premise there's a book called The Extreme Self by Shimon Bassar and Douglas Copeland. In the book, they reflect on the concept of the complete sort of collective loneliness experience. The idea that as we get more connected, or as we are more connected, the lonelier we are. And we all know the statistics and the fear-mongering headlines of us being in an unprecedented age of loneliness. Yet, here we are, an opera director, a festival director, a multiplex conglomerate, a programming director, an art house director, walk into a bar. And I'm going to ask you, if the future is hyper-optimized and everything is going virtual, is the future lonely, or are we still going to somehow find a way to come out?
Probably I will start. So hello, everyone. Look, I think that I'm a bit concerned about all these, predictions that we want to make in general. And in the arts world, what is missing right now is a focus on the present, We are very, very concerned on what's next, how we can use AI. Is AI changing our world? But it's too soon to make predictions. I don't think that our role, at least as me, as a director of a venue like Dubai Opera, is to be too concerned about, how AI is going to change our world in the next 20, 30, 40 years. My main concern right now is I see the artistic movement worldwide, if I may say, that is not really focused on the present and understanding, okay, what's the cultural movement of today? What we have today to say today to the world? Why we're bringing people together today? If you look at the programming of most, I would say, of the venues around the world, opera houses, performing arts center, concert halls, maybe they present 20, 30% of new programs but the majority of the programs is reflecting, you know, arts and artists coming from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I'm not even talking about classical music. So going back to your question, first of all, I think, like before, now we start talking without anyone here, and something was wrong, you know? But now that people are here, hopefully our words makes a sense, first for us, and then hopefully also for the others. And it's the same for the arts. In a venue like Dubai Opera, I'm not sure everyone is familiar here, is the main performing arts center of this incredible city of Dubai, 2,000 seats.
I want to see a show of hands.
Okay, not too many
Dubai
then. It's the
Opera,
main
alright.
performing arts center of Dubai. It's 2,000 seats, beautiful auditorium, very, very, you know, contemporary design, so it doesn't look as a old European opera house. It's a very vibrant venue, but it's a very vibrant venue because of the interaction between who is on the stage and who is in the audience. If you remove one of the elements of this equation, a place like Dubai Opera loses completely meaning. Should we, for instance, broadcast from Dubai Opera? Should we go on streaming? Maybe, but I don't think this is the priority right now. Priority right now is just to celebrate the importance of getting together around something important. But we need to talk, especially in the performing arts and the music, what we have to say, what kind of talent we want to promote, what's the meaning of making a concert, why we spend so much money to produce a concert and general public spend money to buy a ticket. Why we do this? This is what we should talk about. Then how this is going to change in the next 100 years, I don't know, to be honest with you. And it's not up to me to pretend to say, the AI is going to be in this direction. We need to have science here, you know, that are going to tell us what is going to happen.
I'm not particularly interested in the AI question just yet, right? Because that's one of the kind of forces that in a city like Dubai, you're constantly having to answer to. Whatever industry you're in, that's the first thing because of the very clear AI-centric policies and the agenda. You drive, you know, every day past this incredible, you know, beautiful building, and that question sort of, you know, asks itself, right? And what I'm wondering more about is, you know, your kind of quest, right? Because there's plenty of conversations happening in this building about the, you know, the future of AI and the technological kind of deterministic outlooks that are, you know, are sort of upon us, right? But I'm kind of in this, you know, hyper-present moment where, as decision makers, each in your field, about who to bring, you know, on stage, on screen, what is it about the human experience, that act of congregation, of coming together, that remains a persevering force, in your opinion? You wanna? Yeah.
I'll jump in on that. I mean, you know, I don't, you know, going to your original phrasing of the question, I don't think everything's going to go virtual. And I think fundamentally we are very social beings. And, you know, while, yes, our screen time is up, but attendance at live events is through the roof. It's the highest it's ever been worldwide. Now, you have a lot more events than there ever were as well, but there's a demand for it. And I think, you know, Netflix can't compete with a sunset. It's not possible that we're going to separate from that. Now, there are pockets of our routine that are probably more screen heavy than they need to be. And I'm not a technophobe. Like, I really do think there are going to be interesting things that come out of virtual experiences that we can enjoy. But you know, we spoke about this previously as well. Like you know, a perfect example is like, even when our lives were at risk during COVID, and we had to separate from each other, we couldn't do it. You know, even at the expense of getting sick or getting into a situation that could land people around you in trouble, we still were trying to find ways to break rules to get out there and do this. So I'm cautiously optimistic that, you know, there are going to be pockets of time where we're like, why is everyone staying indoors? But in the end, we want to be in the same room together. And, you know, being in a space where you have not just shared interests, but shared values, and watching a show and someone express through their art and their talent together, it's unbeatable. There are very few things that can match that. And sometimes you got to remind people. And but it also, part of it has to do with, you have to build a culture where your society values that. You have to build a culture where your society values being outside together with people they might not know to discover things that they haven't seen before, right? And that takes time, and it's not a straight line, and it's not inevitable. It takes nurturing, and it's something your school has to do, your parents have to do, your friends have to do for each other. But I'm not particularly pessimistic about where this is going.
But why do you think that's a fight worth fighting?
Yeah, it is worth fighting. I mean, what else is there? There have been, and maybe this veers off a little bit, I think there's been this weaponization of individualization worldwide, and the individual self is important. Being yourself is important, being able to express yourself, but functioning as a society together is also important. And you can't really do that if you're not speaking to each other. And I think the loneliness epidemic you're talking about, it's real, and we see it, and it's more pronounced in places like Japan, where they actually have words for it, right? Like that there's 5% of society that feels a particular way, and they don't come out, they don't interact. But I don't know that that's the technology. I do think that comes down to our relationship with each other. And maybe our perception of how we should be treating each other has changed. Technology can accelerate that, but the root cause of it needs to come back to, like, how are we seeing each other as people? And in the space we're in, I feel pretty optimistic that people aren't going to start dropping out to be like, hey, we're not going to come and experience this in real life.
Alejandro, your main force field is the big screen, right? The silver screen. In similar ways, we're on a similar quest with different tools, and the idea that people were going to leave the silver screen, that theaters are dying, that the streamers are going to take over, cinema is done, film is dead. We had that. We went to that cemetery, right, in 2020. And now, worldwide numbers tell a very different story. We're about 80% back to pre-COVID times. Cinema's changing.
Definitely.
The model is changing. So how are you witnessing that relationship to combating the loneliness question, if there is a combat to be had?
I think that in a hyper-connected age that we are, where everyone has the phone and they have everything at the hand of the cinema, concerts, festivals are the answer to how to remain connected as a society. And cinemas have faced the threat of being disappeared since radio, television, DVDs. So, I mean, we have heard how the technology has always threatened cinemas, but there's this connection with the big screen. And going back to the point, I think that what builds a society is how do you relate to each other. And cinema can offer three things that small platforms cannot give. They give you this imagination. It helps you to dream ahead. I mean, when Odyssey 2001 was released, we all knew what AI was before we actually knew it. We knew that it was a machine that was talking and taking decisions, right? And then being in a room where you are full of strangers, but at the same time you are connected to those private sources of fear, love, action. You connect with the audience. You connect with a room that you don't know them, but you are on the same quest. And at the end, it has with technology, it has become way more open to have different content. 40 years ago, Hollywood was the predominant 30 years ago, and suddenly COVID brought a different perspective where we start watching Turkish soap operas, we start watching Korean content. So it started to bring all of that, and that's when we were not alone.
Yeah.
We become a global society. Sorry.
No, I'm going to come back to that because that's a very important part of what the act of coming together, the power that, that kind of ultimately exists with the act of coming together. But I want to also just take a moment to take a poll in this room. We have about 50 people. Like, how many of you think that this force, that we do need to come together as people, human bodies in the same room? Okay, we're like about 30%. How many of you think that we have to work together in the same room? A much lower number. How many of you think that attending things that are related to the matter of the heart and imagination should be shared together? So that tells a very different story, right? And I would like to bring it back to, to Paolo, what you were talking about earlier. You talked about Dubai Opera being designed in a way that is really unconventional. It is not the orthodox sort of, European model of what an opera house should be. How much of that thinking went into the design of the building, of bringing the time people need to spend together before and after a show?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, today it's very important when you offer a cultural, artistic experience to citizens, to just don't think okay, what's going on when I open the curtain, You need to take in mind the entire experience, starting, of course, from how I reach this person, how I convince this person to buy this ticket, so marketing and promotion, and then all the journey, which in a city like Dubai is a journey that we are building right now, because this city is changing so quickly, so rapidly, that 4 years ago it was not an issue to come to Dubai Opera. Now, to get to Dubai Opera, probably you need to stay in traffic for 1 hour, 2 hours. And this is affecting, definitely the experience. So it's very important why we'll build, the cities of tomorrow, that we also think to what kind of experiences we will offer tomorrow to our citizens. Because if it's too complicated to get to a show and I need to take, a car for 2 hours and I need to get there and there is no parking and this and that, I would say 10%, 20% of our audience say, Paolo, we love Dubai Opera, but it's getting too complicated to get there.
Is it time for the opera to leave the building?
So, and Dubai Opera was actually built in 2016. So imagine the issues and the challenges that the theaters, especially in Europe, have that have been built maybe 200, 300 years ago, that you don't even have maybe a restaurant inside your theater, that the most technological equipment that you have maybe allows your guests to access to Wi-Fi, and that's it, So, but this is the point, how much of the new world we want to bring inside the cultural venues, how much we need to transform from the inside theaters and performing arts centers. I think, again, we need to work, and I want to connect with what you were saying before, you were saying society and our communities, they need to be, if you want, trained and educated to get together, and this is very important, and I have the privilege at Dubai Opera, we see thousands of people coming every week. Last year, we welcome over 250,000 people in our season. So we have a very privileged, observatory that allows us to see how we all, including me and my team, act when we get together. And sometimes it's a bit concerning, Yeah, you see a full auditorium and you say, wow, this is a success. But then when you study a little bit, you read a little bit people, you see different attitudes now and behaviors. Not all of them are very respectful,
Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, sure, of course. Not all of them are very respectful, for instance, of the rules of getting together. Maybe some of them, they don't know how to behave when you get together.
Are we talking about like
30% of our audience arrive extremely late. And then they say, but there is traffic. And then, but no, I bought my ticket, I have to have the right to sit even if I'm 30 minutes late, and then they are going to disturb maybe 200 people because they need to get the seat, no? Or, of course, using the phone, which, again, speaks to me about, a lack of focus. There is something that we are missing here. So we are spending money, we are taking a car, we are going there to do what? To take our phone and spend the time looking at our phone when you have your favorite artist performing on stage, no? It's like, I'm always taking this example of, it's like your wife is telling you, I love you, and you, instead of looking her in the eyes, you take the phone and you record a video of your wife saying, I love you. No, just leave
Yeah, but the
the
difference
moment.
is here that the artist needs you to take those videos and needs you to follow back and needs you to also contribute to,
But
that
not during the
other self.
not during the concert.
Not the opera, but I'm saying like that's a different currency that didn't exist and does not exist in the private sphere as well.
If you attend also the big concerts, for instance, Coldplay, probably many of you attended the concerts, and you all know that at a certain point, Chris Martin says, please, let's just take off your phones and let's enjoy one song without phones, no?
Raj, I'm going to throw this one to you because that's something you experience a lot and you have changed over the years now, a decade, a decade plus older, doing this. The rules have changed, right? And what you accept has changed. Are there things that, you now allow that you didn't before and changed in the dynamics of how you design the experience of the festival? Because this festival literally, I don't know how many of you have been to Seoul DXB, and if you're sticking around, stay until December because it's one of the most exciting weekends in the city. And it rises, from the ground, not from the sand, from the ground, at Dubai Design District, and they put together this venue. And there's a lot of thought that goes into how people will use it and how people shouldn't use it. So can you share some of those considerations?
Yeah, look, I think, I would come at it and say that every year you finish the show and then you move on to the next one. And because we do this once a year, we're always trying to solve last year's issues. And so, we've sort of had to get into a different headspace over the last couple of years to be like, let's think ahead about how we want to do this and actually go back to fundamentals, which is, we didn't get into this because we were promoters before we started the festival. We have a group of friends that came together that wanted to build something for other people like us that are also geeks in all the areas that we like. And we said, let's give it a shot. And as you remember, it started as a film screening, and it turned into a block party. And I think what we try and do every year is we really look at, we've been going to festivals since we were 14, 15 years old. What's the show we want to build? And how can we still surprise people when they come through in a space to be like, it's not the exact same thing. It's, it might be the same space, but we're gonna build it differently. You're gonna navigate it differently. And then also, as we start to expand our program, we have to really think about what's functional. Like we have 4 different stages. We need a bigger space, or we need to move things apart. We used to have a magazine we'd publish that was once a year. It was 350 pages, and it would really dive into the stories that we had during the year at the festival, and you could read about them first and get into all the editorial, and then you'd come in, and there were talks and workshops, and then there were the shows, and there were the brands in the fashion space that were built in. And what we saw after a while was that, we always expected, like, has everyone read the magazine? Has everyone done this? And it's like, we're not giving people homework. Come here and enjoy yourself. Everyone's got to experience it their own way. And there's different levels you unlock if you decide to take a little more time to delve into it. And we're here to experience it our way. You experience it yours, as long as everyone is loving and there's no bad vibes or energy in the space. So there are things we learn about space every year as we redesign it, because there's things that happen that we don't realize. But I think we've been fortunate enough that we have an audience where they do their own homework to come in to be like, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to go to that and I'm going to check out this talk. I'm going to spend my time here. Also, as the city's growing, you don't really always know who's coming. Like, you have your core audience, but there are more and more people each year, so we're learning from them too.
Alejandro, how has the cinema experience changed in your years of thinking about, the model of the conveyor belt multiplex experience? I've heard a quote, I don't know if it's an official quote, about showing films so you can sell popcorn, right? That's the model of multiplexes.
I mean, that's how we started, yeah. At the end was all about popcorn, and I think that we have to reinvent ourselves in the process of enjoying the experience, right? So again, retrofitting different types of seat, making a different kind of food. It's all about how do you make a better experience? How do you give people a reason to drive 1.5 hours in the traffic? How do you make them come out from their house now that everyone can get platforms or have a really nice TV? Again, it's all about the overall experience, and we try to make it simpler to get your ticket on the phone, but also what kind of movies are we showing? I think that, again, not going beyond the traditional content. Now we try to do some concerts, we try to do some live events, just to make it memorable for people. It's not the same to go and watch your soccer game in your house if you can watch it in the humongous screen, and then you can also enjoy it about that. It's making a community event, and I think that what the cinema tries to do as is to become a platform for different kind of content and putting behind just the popcorn and the movie for the overall experience of let's go there, maybe geek out and watch the movies, and it's more of a reconnection with all of these re-releases of Back to the Future, Shark, that are these movies that somehow they are classics, but I watched them when they were released, so they cannot be classic. I'm not that old. But apparently now they call classic Back to the Future, and the new generations are eager to connect with that. The new generations are the ones that they are eager to see that again, they're going back to that experience of uniqueness, of watching it again. We have a world that is digital with a digital projector, but again, you also have this market that is not longer niche, where you have the all 35mm movie playing, where you have all of this, the relaunch of The Godfather, and watching those movies in the big screen is not comparable to the experience of watching it in TV. We have Frankenstein in Netflix that was pre-released in cinemas, and it's totally different experience. So it's all about, again, being in the room, connected with people, geeking out a little bit, and getting to that beginning of we are all enjoying this, and putting the challenge of give me 2 hours of your time, put away your phone, enjoy the show. After that, you can post about it, you can say whatever you want, but let's all be in the room for 2 hours. And the new generations are the ones that are pushing more than the people older than me, right?
And I mean, right now you're based in Indonesia, so you're targeting a much younger audience that is very tech savvy, that is very communal about going to the cinema. So have you kind of adjusted through through your programming or through even the way that you design the cinema spaces or the halls for the type of use in that context?
What has worked a lot is local content. Indonesia, 60% of the movies are local, and that is relatively a new industry. Pre-COVID, it was only 8%. So something that happened during COVID, and then the shutdown in the US where they went for strike, is that local content start producing movies that connected with the audience. And they start seeing things that were attractive for them. They're related with their culture, related with the local traditions, and they start seeing mostly horror movies, which I don't connect that much, but they like it. And then it become a phenomenon, and they start doing better movies and better movies. Right now they dominate that, and people are seeking into that. Now they are moving into animation and other stuff, but it has been about bringing content that it was relevant for them. And we adjust a little bit the food, but it was more of giving them something that it was worth for them watching. And I think that that's the opportunity in the Middle East, having those kind of content that draw not, with 90% of expats here, you can bring any other content and it will work as long as it's something that will connect them.
So this is something that is very, very close to the kind of work that we do as art house or community cinemas of thinking about what it is that we put on screen. And I want to talk to each of you about that, right? There is a tremendous responsibility in terms of, there is the act of coming together, but then it's the responsibility of what you put in front of those groups, right? In front of people. And that's the responsibility. I'm not even talking about your social responsibility or your political responsibility. That is part of the whole fold, right? I think the idea that you play a part as curators and as programmers in shaping the way that we imagine the future is a huge one, right? Whether you're coming together in front of a screen or you're coming together in front of a stage or you're coming together in a venue or a space that is temporal, like a festival, there is an element of putting sounds, images, or factory memories, imagination in people's minds about how they will imagine places of the future, the people of the future, who gets to be represented, what is the status quo. All of that is a pulse check of what our responsibilities are. There's a writer called Fatima Bhutto who wrote a book called The New Kings of the World. In it, she argues that culture is effectively the most important power today versus economic or military power. And she uses the examples of Turkish soap operas, Dizi, and K-pop, and Bollywood as examples of how the dynamics of quote unquote the uncomfortable word of content, is sort of changing. Raj, I know that this is something that is very close to Soul DXB ethos. You put together shows by Sudanese rappers, Palestinian photographers, folks, Uzbek creators, like people from the global south that are the 4-hour flight radius, from the city. How do you think about that as you curate your programming in terms of your role in shaping the future?
Yeah, so look, the first place you got to start is program honestly. We don't put on anything we don't like. And sometimes that means it's not always a 10 out of 10. Sometimes, there are confused people in the audience being like, this seems a little weird. But that's the place we start. And I do think being in Dubai and the UAE, one of the best investments this city's ever made is its airport. And we're literally connecting east and west, right? Like look at the scale of and the volume of people coming through. And we get to put together the type of program here that may not work back in New York, or it may not work in Delhi. Because the population, while it can feel fragmented, is very, very international. So if you play it right and you figure out how to reach people from a marketing point of view, there is an audience for everything. I think it's exciting for us to be able to see, last year, for example, the program had 38 nationalities. We had, music in 18 languages. We had speakers from 8 different countries across 9 talks. So there is an opportunity to do that here. And, we do think it's really important. When we started 13 years ago, the live music scene here in the GCC was not very strong. It's come a long way. There's a lot more to do, but we're now actually excited as programmers to be like how many options there are, and how even beyond the GCC, like looking at what's happening in the space of music and in the space of fashion, that we have all these great ideas that can come in, and we're going to put them at the same level as everything else coming in. And I think what we get to do is what we're doing is part of mainstream culture today, and our job is to have a point of view editorially on that. So even if people come out from South Africa or Washington or Japan, they're coming out as our guests on this program, and they're going to sit in harmony across it. I do want to make a point earlier about what you were saying about culture being the most powerful force out there. There have been moments, and there are probably still moments in the week where I do feel like that, and there are other moments where I feel like media is there, and while culture can certainly be influential and is extremely important, it doesn't feel as urgent as a power as some of the things we're experiencing out there today. So I think there's still room for those of us in the culture space to step it out and get a little louder to push our points of views out there.
Absolutely. Paulo, I think in terms of turning up the volume of that kind of diversity, right, you have to contend with a very different model being in a city like this, right? So on your stage, you put everything from the Nutcracker, the sort of the West End Fair, the Wicked. All of these renditions have come to the city, but equally on the same platform with the same quality, you've put on the stage Ibrahim Tatlis's, who's coming up, the Turkish legend. You put Gugush, the voice of Iran. You put Khalid Abdurrahman, the Saudi singer, who's coming in January. Kuwaiti comedy musicals. So how do you go about, how has that sort of changed as you spent more time listening to how things are changing in the world? Is that part of your daily thinking around your curatorial?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I think that the variety, the richness of the Dubai Opera program is incredible. And this is because of Dubai, because of this city is bringing together more than 200 nationalities, and when you have as part of your mission to serve the community, then you need to understand what kind of community you have in front of you, what are the expectations, what is culture for me, for you, for all of the other citizens of Dubai. And when you develop such a very international cultural project, definitely there are a lot of challenges. First of all, we have many identities at Dubai Opera, which is beautiful, but it's also sometimes challenging because most of the arts institution, performing arts center, they have quite a clear artistic direction, quite a clear artistic identity. On the contrary, we change every week. Maybe you come a week at Dubai Opera to see a classical ballet, next week a musical, and then an Arabic concert. And of course, this is what makes Dubai Opera quite unique. Now, of course, we are a private organization, so unfortunately, we cannot always think to put first, what we like, because we saw it's not always the case that the community reacts, even with just curiosity to say, oh, let me discover this jazz artist coming from New York, wherever. We saw that if we go under a certain, let me say, commercial line, the community doesn't really react, which is sad from my perspective, of course, of as Dubai Opera, but also I think that clearly demonstrate the fact that this city really needs to grow a lot also, not just on the top level, let's say, of the high-level organizations like Dubai Opera, Museum of the Future, but we need also the underground cultural scene. We need, more interest and appetite just to discover the arts and music, and not just to buy a ticket to once again see Nutcracker. And again, this goes also a little bit against my, let's say, direction, no? But what I'm saying is that we need an ecosystem. Dubai Opera is an incredible platform, but probably is the final tassel of a mosaic that we are still building, And we don't have just to think, okay, we need Dubai Opera, we need the Sphere, we need Guggenheim, we need this and that, which are incredible initiatives. We need to put the same amount of effort and commitment also to push the medium and low level of this ecosystem, which are very fragile at the moment.
On some level, you're sort of ricocheting off of the notion that it's multiple smaller grassroots attempts at any institutional level to fight the fight of bringing people together around good stories, right? That remains a sort of common denominator.
Absolutely, and again, the fact that Dubai Opera is very successful, of course, because we tried our best to promote artistic excellence, so inviting the big names, the big productions, but we all don't listen just to big names. Mm-hmm. We enjoy also to listen to maybe an artist that very few people know. And we also enjoy that one day we open our Spotify and, wow, I never listened to this song. Wow, this song is going to help me to say in a better way, I love you to my partner, to my mom. We don't have to miss also just the love of being curious about the arts. That's why we don't have just to promote, mainstream. Dubai Opera is doing this, it's great. But I would love to imagine that Dubai will become more and more a place where we also create new culture that is produced here in Dubai.
But maybe that's someone else's job,
But if I could jump in on that, we are one of the last independent festivals left in the GCC. There were quite a few more 6 or 7 years ago. This is a pretty crazy business, and you gotta really like it, or you gotta get to a point in life to be like, I don't know how to do anything else. And so we have to make it easier for people to be able to operate in this space. There are a lot of young people out there with very, very good ideas and great taste in the arts, and we need to put a floor under them, because if they go in to be like, if I do this, I'm going to lose my shirt and I don't know what happens next. That's not the way to go about it. And it's like you talk about, the ecosystem requires infrastructure as well, right? It's not enough just to be like, I'm going to bring out these 10 artists when they're in their peak phase at their highest fee to the city, where are the venues, right? You need spaces for people to be able to go in. I think, and we can get to a point to be like, actually, we have the infrastructure. If we de-zone and we deregulate and we change the way people are able to use spaces, we're going to get that scene. And people, and that's the supply side of it, right? That's the people being like, I'm going to go and put a show on. Then there's the other side of it, which is, people get what they put into it. The city is what you make it. And at the end of the day, you got to show up. You got to buy tickets. You got to go and support. You got to go and stand there when there's 5 people in a room to be like, in 1 year, there's going to be 200 people in that room. And that means you got to carve out time in your very busy lives to be able to do that. And there are a lot of things to come together. Like I said earlier, I am optimistic that we get there, but we're in a hurry. And when you're in a hurry, you miss a lot of the steps, which is people getting to build all of this together in like very strange pieces.
In a way, though, the arts, the sort of the role of the arts is in a way to encourage folks to hurry slowly, right? Like
Yeah,
that's sort
that's
of our
right, yeah.
role collectively in different ways. You want people to hurry to your theater so they can sit there for 2 hours. You want people to come to your opera so they can have the aperitivo, and then enjoy the show, and to walk around till the XB before the show starts. So there is an element of like immersion into each other that in different ways we are betting on as almost the main act itself, right? I want to bring it back to the technological kind of main character, the invisible force, right? That is meant to both enable and disrupt our respective industries. There's an AI tool that professes, anytime you go on anything right now, there's somebody selling you an AI tool that's going to tell you the exact, butter to salt ratio on your popcorn. It's going to tell you what artist you're going to put on stage at 2:59, p.m. because that's what the mood is on ground. And you have, all kinds of tools to optimize the bounce back ratio within the space, right? So with all of these tools that are available and the whole buzzword of having AR, integrating VR, integrating immersive. I mean, I go to a ton of festivals, and there's always a section, right, that talks about it. And not to dismiss that, I'm curious what aspect of that toolkit have you actually optimized and seen the end sort of goal actually come to fruition and benefit from it? So maybe you want to start, Paulo?
Yeah. Look, for sure, I mean, AI is an incredible tool for everyone, including the ones who work in the performing arts. How this is now changing the world of the performing arts, I think still very little, but just because we use it very little. We use it to write caption on the posts, which, by the way, I'm always telling my team, and everyone, of course, is doing it, but when you read a post from a cultural institution, you want to read something which is authentic, which is genuine, which probably surprise you, but all of this very fake, artificial language that AI now is offering, I don't think that is actually helping us to communicate better with all of you. So I'm not sure right now AI is helping cultural institutions, at least performing arts centers, to better communicate to citizens.
What about other tools? Like, forget AI for a second. Like, what about things like, virtual reality or immersive experiences? How have you employed things successfully in the opera that has changed?
I'll tell you about the opera in a sec. What I've seen, again, also going back to what happened during COVID time, when we realized, oh, wow, we just have Wi-Fi in the theaters. We don't have actually proper digital infrastructure, except few theaters in the world. We actually haven't invested. Governments, private sector, they really say, oh, wow, we learned a lesson. Now let's create in each and every theater a proper digital infrastructure. This didn't happen, and it didn't happen even in Dubai Opera. We have an incredible sound system. We have a very sophisticated technological system that controls the configuration of our auditorium, but it's not a super technological theater. Why? Because we didn't feel the need actually to invest so much money to transform a place that actually should mainly focus on presenting talent And right now, talents, they don't need all of this digital infrastructure. At least this is what we see from our perspective. How much we are going to invest to make our theaters digital, I think very little in the next couple of decades, to be honest with you.
I want to ask Alejandro the same question because the film industry has really, I think, taken the the sort of the avant-garde hit of having to transform, and delivery and release models have changed.
Yeah.
What are some things that have actually worked for you in your cinema spaces that hasn't hasn't really disrupted the model either? It's something that's just made things easier, like contactless ticketing or other.
I mean, for on the way of technology of how we deliver content, how we can, you don't have to have the old 35 millimeter and you need to move it from one to another. You can actually have the movie. You can have more flexibility having content. You can actually have movies that are released simultaneously worldwide, easier. You can film better movies with a lower budget, and that kind of democratize a little bit content, and that allows smaller countries to start developing their own industry. So those are the positive ways of technology that are helping AI, that are not mixing into the using AI to do a virtual actor that will eventually do a movie. That's the way where we don't think that it should go. We want to see it in a way where stories are true, stories are connecting, where more people can, they can do a movie with their phones and that can be shown the big screen and they can share the message. And going back to the original comment is, and showing messages that are relevant, that we feel positive, that will build into that future. So in Indonesia has started to do this movement of using cinemas as a platform for local music groups to do smaller, really local music films where it's easy to fail without necessarily losing your shirt. So you put together a couple of groups, you bring the universities, you pay one fee, and you can see 3 groups playing that they start getting to know each other. And now through QR, you can start following the band, and they can start building that ecosystem. We are trying to do that with documentaries now. We want to go to universities and say, hey, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about women rights. Let's talk about something that is important for you. Let's start doing the short film with your phone, and as a university, you will come and watch it. You will vote online, and the winner will get a prize.
Like the 48-hour movie challenge.
We are trying to evolve with technology into that way. We're trying to use technology as a way to facilitate it, not necessarily as a way to substitute. And and now it's going to be the new actor that no one recognizes, and it's just a guy that is designed by virtual reality. We, as a cinema, we want to walk away from that, but we want to embrace technology to make easier buying tickets, to make your order, to make everything that is healthier for you and easier as an experience.
Raj, I want to ask a different question to you about this. You built your own sound system, right? The Soul sound system.
Yeah.
You have a lot of, DJs and selectors and artists that really, have, in a way, like championed the analog route and scene in this city and in this region. You want to talk about that reverse trend that you've also experienced over the years at Seoul DXB?
Yeah, so if you look at Seoul, we've got 5 spaces this year. Each one will have a different sound system, and we're agnostic to the idea of is it analog or is it digital. It's got to feel right for the space it's in, and our job is not for people to come out with like a little iPad and reference to be like, are all the frequencies sitting right in the room? It's got to feel right. And we want people to leave saying that they feel better than when they walked in. And so when we built our system, so if you look at our main stage, we have state-of-the-art L-acoustic system, whatever latest stuff they can throw at us, and we try different configurations each year to see what feels right for the venue. But when we looked at stage 2 and what we wanted to do in the smaller space where we host all our parties and where we do a lot of the smaller live shows, we went to Jamaica. And we went and met who was the top builder on the island, and his name's Uncle Ronnie. He's 76 years old. He was, 69 or 68 at the time, and he had retired. And we spent 2 weeks harassing him every day, and we convinced him to come out of retirement and do this. And we are agnostic towards technology. I'm also open to VR, AR in the venue, but it's not about the technology. It's about the story you're telling with it. And if the idea is great, then let's make it an experience. And we enjoy the spectacle side of what we do as well. But technology should be there to empower you to achieve an experience you want to get to. And if it's just throwing the flashy stuff at it, then it's going to fall flat anyways.
I want to share, that we're running a parallel program as part of a collaboration with the Future Foundation that looks at the idea of, imagining the future through cinema at Cinema Akil in 25 hours. It's across the street. And then there's also parallel screenings happening here at the museum, so please check out that program. And one of the films we're showing is Mickey 17 by Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite. I'm sure everyone has seen it. Who's seen Parasite? Who's seen Mickey 17? There's your chance. All right. Starring Robert Pattinson. And it's 4 feature films, and one of the things, he was interviewed recently by the Academy Museum about AI and the future of AI, and there's this really optimistic, enthusiastic interviewer asking him about, the possibilities that are now available to us. And he looks at him dead straight, in the eye and says, we as filmmakers, and I'm paraphrasing here, are going to come together to train ourselves to pull and unplug the cords of all the AR machines so that there's not a single tech company in the world that has access to that data. And this is one of the greatest living filmmakers, of all time. So I think, sometimes I also wonder, with folks like you, which have such a tremendous, engagement with the community, such a tremendous trust relationship, what are the ethics that you think of, and what are the things that you will not do? What are the red lines when it comes to adopting technology and AI specifically? Maybe I'll circle back to you because the AI question was always yours.
Well, again, I think, we are talking about very different cases here. No? So from a theater perspective, the line is very clear. Again, you need to serve the community. So our concern is actually to guarantee that the experience that the guests have is again, authentic. We just don't want to make money, without focusing on quality, on excellence, actually, at every moment of our experience, of the journey that we offer to our guests. I don't see this happening, at least now. I don't think that I will see personally this, probably my children, how much technology is going to transform the experience of staying in a theater. We still need to work on very, very basics, actually. There is very little technology in the majority of the theaters around the world. So we are not using all the potential of technology, as you were saying, to facilitate how we buy tickets, how we get to a theater, how we find our seat. If you think, we are doing almost the same things that probably our parents, grandparents did when they went to a theater, So I'm not really concerned about how technology will transform and will probably put under risk, the ethical, let's say, journey of a guest inside the theater. Not really.
Alejandro, you want to take that fun ethics question about integrating AI and data privacy?
I mean, as long as from the customer experience, I think that we need to be very careful with using AI. There's this question mark of how do we use it to produce the perfect content that will draw audience, and that doesn't work. People will watch what they want to watch. And in cinemas, we have a weekly race. I mean, there's, the movies that you think that will work, they don't work, and then people connect with other films that no one was expecting because it calls to something behind it. For cinema operators, I think that the use of technology, as long as it is to facilitate the experience, we will take it. But there's a clear line on using AI on movies, and similar to the example that you were quoting, that you were mentioning, I will not quote, but you can Google what Guillermo del Toro said about AI with Netflix. It was one word and then AI. So you can just Google it. And I think that
A four-letter word.
yeah, exactly. That ends in K. Yeah, but other than that, I will tell you that it's quite clear that, again, making a film is about the story, is about how you connect with the actor that is in front of it. And AI will help you in the back end. It will help you to, as a powerful tool in a lot of administrative things, but not as a substitute of the actual art of making music or actually making a film.
Raj, what is it that you will never touch when it comes to AI and data privacy?
You know, if you're an anxious person, there's like a common exercise where a therapist might tell you to go and like make a list of all the things you were anxious about and see how many of those actually turn into reality. And I did that once, and I realized that there weren't that many that turned into reality. And then what I became anxious about was that actually we're terrible at predicting the future. We simply don't know what's coming. I think our expectation of what AI is actually going to be is going to look very little like what it is today. We're right at the beginning of it, and you know, if LLMs are the leading frontier of AI technology in 3 years, I'll eat my shoe. Like I really, really doubt it. And so I don't know what type of problems are going to come. We started this thing because we wanted to meet other people like us. We build shows for our peers, and we're not really looking to put technology between us that drives a wedge. We will use it to enhance the experiences. So, you know, if I can deliver better customer service, if I can make your ticket buying easier, if I can figure out maybe patterns in the venue of what you really like in terms of what you're consuming in food and beverage, maybe I can get you more of that. But beyond that, I think, you know, we're not a record label. You know, we're not the ones going out physically producing content. Our job is to bring the things you like into a space in real life. And so, you know, I'm not an expert in the space. I think I'm fairly low tech, but whatever we adopt is going to be based on how we want to experience things ourselves as owners of the business.
My last sort of ask of you today, and thank you for your generosity of spirit here. I think that goes unacknowledged sometimes in contexts like this. And as we are here to hurry slowly, I also want to take a moment to do that and thank you. You know, we're sitting here with policymakers, researchers, folks that are really thinking day in, day out about the future, right? Designing the future, writing policies for the future, regulating the future, predicting the future, foresight, all of that. And in this heresight, you know, which we find ourselves, what would you like to leave these folks with from your experience, from your world of advocacy, of beauty, of creation, of the human experience of congregation? What can you offer them from your shared wisdom? Maybe I'll start with you, Alejandro.
I would say that, you know, let dreamers put their ideas in whatever art of form that is their music, photo, painting, movies, and let's build together based on these dreams the future. It doesn't have to be, the future doesn't have to be a negative destruction, there's no water. There are so many positive movies that talk about utopia, about the development, about the pushing together, united. You create a great list of movies to watch in these days. There's another one that I tend to quote a lot, that is The Martian, that it talks about not only traveling in the space, but how the humanity come together, sorry for the spoiler, to save one guy, right? So let's dream together, guys. Let's build all of these policies with the hope of arts as another tool to help us dream of what we want to achieve. Again, live events, opera, music, films are an opportunity and give you a window to dream that.
Paolo?
Yeah, I think what I'm learning more and more at Dubai Opera, it's well, the importance of not being, going to our first point, lonely when you are together with a lot of people, no? Because I see a lot of people going at the opera and they just don't care, the people that are around them, they are not curious to look at the faces of, oh, let me see who likes the music that I like, no? Let me let me introduce to the person that I have close to me, no? Actually, sometimes we say, this person is disturbing me, oh, don't talk to me, you sit like this, you don't want to look at it. So again, probably we should take these opportunities where we are in places where we celebrate beauty and we celebrate, things that we all like, no? Like when you are in a concert with 1,000, 2,000, 20,000 people, don't just think to your personal individual experience, but enjoy the very collective experience, which is also about maybe smiling at the person that you have close to you, introducing yourself. How many of you introduce when you are at the theater? And again, we are in a social event, we should act socially. We are not used anymore to act socially, and we just believe that posting a selfie with thousands of people make us very social. This is not the case, and I see a lot, again, of people that are not really taking this beautiful opportunity. And in a city of Dubai, let's be honest, there are not many opportunities of getting together with hundreds, thousands of people, unless you go to a club or a restaurant, So theaters, museums offer this opportunity, but when we buy the ticket, let's also take 1 minute and say, okay, let me also take maybe some time when I go there to just, be open with the others, and be accessible to other people that maybe you want to say, oh, wow, hi, you're smiling, how are you? You like this artist, tell me about you, And this is not about, of course, dating, it's just about being friendly.
Talk to strangers. So that's going to be the exercise after we walk out of here. You all have to introduce yourself to the person next to you. Raj, I will end this wisdom sharing panel with you.
Yeah. Culture is supposed to improve our quality of life, right? It's supposed to make your city more livable. And I think the intention of what we're doing in the region is real. And I think this region is putting its money where its mouth is to say we're going to invest in it because we believe that will improve quality of life in the city. And so I think for us to get the most out of culture, we have to realize that we can empower it, but we can't control it. And the moment you do, you get something else. And and I think what I would say is we should encourage each other to trust each other a little more and keep an open mind.
And with that, I thank you for trusting me with your time for being here. Thank you to every one of you who spent time here with us. Please stick around. The speakers are here to answer more questions outside. Talk to strangers, trust each other,
Yes.
and let dreamers dream.